Avery's hands were shaking before he even knew why. He was halfway down the block, head lowered against the New York winter wind, when he saw two small shapes standing alone under a wall of glass and Christmas lights. The crowd flowed around them like water, but they didn't move. Two girls, still as statues, too still for this city, at this hour. He stopped so fast a man behind him cursed and stepped around him. Avery didn't hear the words. His eyes stayed locked on the twins in red coats, pressed together in front of a luxury storefront like someone had dropped them there and forgotten to pick them back up. One of them was crying, quiet, shaking, shoulders bouncing. The other wasn't crying at all. Her face was dry, but her eyes looked too old, too wide, taking in everybody and trusting nobody. That silence hit him harder than the tears. He stepped closer, but not too close. He knew what he looked like. Tired single dad in a cheap work jacket, lunchbox still hanging from his hand, boots worn down from double shifts. Men like him didn't walk up on kids in this city without thinking twice. "Hey," he said, stopping a few feet away, hands in clear view. "You girls okay?" Two pairs of eyes turned toward him. The crying slowed. The quiet one pulled her sister in tighter, like she was deciding if he was danger or help. "We're waiting," the quiet one said. "For who?" Avery asked. "Our mom," the other whispered. She said stay. The words punched right through his chest. She said stay. He'd said those same words once, years ago, when his own child was small and he was running late. He had carried the guilt of that day ever since. "How long you been out here?" he asked. They looked at each other, then down at their shoes. No answer. The city didn't care. Cars rolled past. A couple laughed as they took a selfie by the lights. A security guard from the corner glanced, then turned his head away like he didn't see anything worth trouble. Avery took off his gloves slowly and held them out with both hands so they could see every move. "My name's Avery," he said, voice low and steady. "I'm heading home from work. It's cold out here. You can use these till we find your mom, all right? I'll stay right here. I'm not going to leave you." The crying twin sniffed and looked up at her sister. The quiet one studied Avery's face, his badge clipped to his jacket, his work bag, his stance. Something in her eyes softened by a fraction. "I'm Lena," she said, barely above a whisper. "I'm Lila," the other added, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. They took the gloves together, slowly, like they still weren't sure he wouldn't snatch them back. When the wool wrapped around their small fingers, their shoulders eased just a little. Not safe, but less alone. "All right, Lena." "All right, Lila," Avery said. "We're gonna figure this out. Together." He pulled his phone from his pocket, making sure they could see it clearly. No sudden moves. No secrets. "Listen," he continued. "I'm gonna call for help so we can find your mom faster. I'm staying right here with you. You two can stand by my side so you're under the light. You don't have to come any closer than you want." Lila's voice shook. "Are you gonna leave when you're done?" Avery felt his throat tighten. "No," he said. "I won't. I know how it feels when someone you're counting on disappears. I won't do that to you." As he said it, he knew this night wasn't going to shake off easy. Something about these two girls in those red coats, under those expensive lights, was about to change more than anyone on that sidewalk understood. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. He thumbed the screen but hesitated on the emergency number. If their mother appeared right now, what would she see? A man near her children with his phone out. Too many good people had been turned into the villain in somebody else's rushed story. He chose a different path. "Before I call anyone," he said, "tell me something about your mom. What does she look like? Where was she going?" Lena chewed her lower lip. "She was talking on the phone," she said. "She said stay by the window with the lights. She walked away to talk where it wasn't loud. Then, people kept walking, and then she was gone. Did she go into a car? A store? Avery asked. I don't know, Lila murmured. It got too crowded. I couldn't see. As they talked, the cold bit harder. Avery could feel it in his toes, in the stiff joints of his fingers. But the girls didn't complain about the temperature. They complained about only one thing. Are you sure you're not going to leave? Lila asked again. He nodded. I'm right here. I'll walk with you till we find her. For a second, the weight of that promise pressed on his chest like a hand. He had a child at home waiting on him. He had work again in the morning. But none of that mattered more than the image of these twins standing here alone while the world rushed around them. He wasn't about to join the rush. As the three of them stood under the lights, with strangers glancing and moving on, one question hung quietly in the air. If their mother didn't come back, what then? If you were walking through your city and saw two kids alone like this, would you stop, or would you keep moving like everyone else? Let's walk, Avery said. Slow. You stay between me and the buildings. If you see anything that looks like where your mom was, you tell me, all right? Lena nodded and slipped one gloved hand into her sister's. Lila's other hand hovered near Avery's jacket, not quite holding it, but close enough that if fear hit hard, she could grab on. They started down the sidewalk, three small figures against a river of people. Avery kept his pace easy, no sudden changes. Every step was a choice not to join the hurry that swallowed most of the city. What kind of coat was she wearing? He asked. Like yours, or different? Long, Lena said. Dark, with shiny buttons. Did she have a hat? He asked. No hat, Lila replied, but her hair was up, like this. She lifted a hand and made a quick twist motion near the back of her head. As they passed each store, Avery scanned the reflections in the glass as much as the people. He watched the way guards leaned against doorways, the way shoppers clutched their bags, the way nobody really saw anybody. Are you gonna leave? Lila asked again after a few minutes. The words were quieter this time, like she hated saying them, but needed to hear the answer. No, Avery repeated. Even if it takes a while, I'm here. The city bellied out around them. Honking horns, street vendors yelling, music leaking from open doors. Somewhere in that noise, a mother was missing two daughters. Somewhere, a woman was about to realize she had lost more than her place in line. How long were you standing there before I showed up? Avery asked, careful not to let it sound like blame. Lena shrugged. Long. Long like a song? He asked. Or long like a movie? Long like when you wait for your birthday, Lila whispered. That answer slid right under his ribs. Kids measured time in feelings, not minutes. Whatever number the clock would have shown, it had already been too long. They reached the corner. The light turned red, holding them in place. A bus roared by, spraying slush near their shoes. Avery shifted to block the splash. Did she go this way? He asked when the light changed. Lena squinted up the street. I don't remember, she admitted, shame creeping into her voice. Hey, Avery said gently. That's okay. You two did what she told you. You stayed. That's not on you. He checked his phone. His shift reminder blinked. His stomach tightened for a second. He cleared the notification without opening it. Are you going to call the police? Lila asked, eyes flicking to his phone. Maybe, Avery said. They can help when grown-ups mess up, but I wanted to give your mom a chance to come back to the place she left you first. A lot of times, scared moms run straight back, and I didn't want to drag you off before she got there. Do you have a kid? Lena asked suddenly. Yeah, he said. I've got one. About your age. Does your kid get scared? She asked. He thought about late nights, about whispered prayers over a sleeping body, about times he'd almost given up, and then remembered who was watching him. Sometimes, Avery said, but I try to make sure they never feel scared alone. The words came out low and solid. He meant every one of them. As they crossed into the next block, a A couple bumped them rushing by, muttered an apology without looking back, and disappeared into a rideshare. The twins pressed closer to Avery's side. "Are you going to leave?" Lila asked again. Avery knew she wasn't talking about the next 5 minutes. She was talking about something deeper. Adults who vanished fast and stayed gone. "I'll leave when you're back with your mom," he answered. "Not before." The cold dug in deeper. His fingers, now bare, tingled. His feet ached. But another worry pricked at him now. If this took too long, someone might start asking why a man like him was walking 2 little girls through Midtown at dusk. He checked the time again. It had been longer than he thought. "What if we can't find her?" Lena asked, voice brittle. Avery opened his mouth, but nothing easy came out. Before he could form an answer that wouldn't break them, a strange quiet grew inside him, like the moment before a storm. Because if she didn't show up soon, he was going to have to make a choice that could change everything, for them and for him. If you were in Avery's boots, balancing your own child at home and 2 kids on the street, how far would you go before you called in outside help? They had been walking long enough for Avery's toes to go numb when it happened. Lila stopped. No warning, no sound. Her hand slid from her sister's sleeve and dropped to her side. Lena took one more step before she felt the absence and turned back quick. "Leela?" she asked, worry suddenly louder than the traffic. Leela wasn't looking at Avery anymore. She wasn't looking at the ground. Her eyes were fixed across the street, locked on something only she seemed to see. "There," she whispered. Avery followed her gaze. On the other side of the avenue, under a row of white lights strung between steel pillars, a woman stood alone by a line of town cars. Her phone was pressed to her ear, but she wasn't talking. Her mouth hung open just a little, eyes blank with the kind of fear that doesn't make sound. Her coat was long and dark, just like the girls had said. Her hair was twisted up the same way Lila had shown him. In that moment, she didn't look like a woman in charge of anything. She looked like someone whose whole world had slipped right out of her hands. "Mom," Lena breathed. The light was red. Cars flew by between them and the woman. Lila took a step toward the curb, like she might try to cross anyway. "Whoa, hey," Avery said, reaching his arm out, not touching her, just placing it in front of her chest like a guardrail. "Wait for the light." The seconds stretched. The woman's eyes swept the sidewalk again. They skimmed right over the twins' heads at first, like she couldn't let herself believe they were really there. Then she saw them. Her phone fell out of her hand and hit the pavement. She didn't even glance down as it bounced. "Girls!" she shouted, voice cracking. The light flipped green. Lena ran first, Lila right beside her. They darted between slow-starting cars, squeals of brakes and horns filling the air, Avery fast on their heels, heart in his throat. By the time he caught up on the far sidewalk, the woman was already on her knees, arms around both twins, pulling them so tight they disappeared into her coat. She was crying hard now, not cute tears, but the kind that shake your whole body. "I told you to stay. I told you to stay. I told you." She kept repeating, words tumbling out. "We stayed." Lena sobbed into her shoulder. "We stayed. He stayed with us." The woman's crying slowed just enough for her to hear that last part. She lifted her head. Her gaze followed her daughter's small pointing hand and landed on Avery. They stared at each other for a beat. Her makeup was smudged and her hair had half fallen from its twist. Up close, Avery could see how carefully put together she was under the mess. Tailored coat, expensive boots, jewelry that didn't shine loud but whispered money. "Were you with them?" she asked, breathing hard. Avery kept his hands loose at his sides, palms out a bit so nothing looked hidden. "I found them standing alone by the big window over there," he said. "They said you told them to stay. I walked with them till they saw you. That's all." "You stayed with them this whole time?" she asked, voice softening around the edges. "Yes, ma'am," he answered. "I've got a kid too. I know how it feels thinking they might be out here alone." Her eyes glistened again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was some mix of gratitude and shame. "Thank you," she said. "You don't know what you just did for me." Before Avery could say anything back, a new voice cut through the air like a sharp edge. "What happened?" A man pushed through the small ring of onlookers that had formed. He wore a suit with the tie pulled down, hair perfect like he'd practiced it, and an expression that said he was used to being the most important person in any room. His eyes swept the scene. The twins, the woman on her knees, the dropped phone, Avery standing a few feet away. His face twisted. "You had one job," he snapped at the woman. "One. Watch them. How do you lose both in the middle of Midtown?" "I was on a call," she said, voice going quiet in that way people did when they were tired of defending themselves. "You said you were watching them." "I turned my back for 30 seconds, he shot back. "And this is what I see?" He turned on Avery next. "And you," he demanded. "Who are you supposed to be?" There it was, the look Avery knew too well, like he was a problem that had wandered into the shot. "A stranger who didn't keep walking," Avery said, meeting his stare but keeping his tone calm. The man scoffed. "You expect me to believe that? You just happen to be here alone with my kids?" Before the tension could crack the air any further, one of the twins stepped in. "He stayed," Lena said, face still wet. "Mommy, he stayed the whole time." The woman, still on her knees, still holding them, turned to the man. "Tom," she said, and the word carried warning now. "Enough. If you were watching this unfold on that sidewalk, whose side would your heart lean toward? The man who showed up angry, or the man who stopped and stayed?" "Tom, stop," the woman repeated, standing slowly, pulling the twins up with her. "You're scaring them." "They were already scared," Tom shot back. "Standing in the street with some guy you don't know." The small crowd around them shifted. A couple of people started recording with their phones. New York loved a scene, and this had all the pieces. "He told us his name," Lila said, voice shaking but brave. "He gave us his gloves, he called people. He stayed." Tom rolled his eyes. "You don't know what men like this really want," he muttered. Something hardened in Avery's chest, but he kept his mouth shut. He'd heard that tone before. Men who thought money came with a license to insult whoever they wanted. The woman straightened to her full height, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and took a breath. When she spoke again, there was a new edge in her voice. "This is Carol Lynch," she said, touching her chest. "These are my daughters, and that man helped them when we didn't." The last sentence landed heavy in the air. Tom's eyes flashed. "We?" he repeated. "No. You. I was in the car waiting. You're the one who walked off." Carol didn't flinch. "We are both their parents," she said. "We are both responsible when something goes wrong." Avery watched her, something like respect forming under his ribs. Most people in her shoes would have let the blame slide off and stick to whoever was closest. She was choosing to stand in it. He took another small step back. This wasn't his fight. He'd done his part, and the more he stayed inside this circle, the more likely it was that someone would rewrite him into a role he didn't ask for. "I'm glad you found them," he said to Carol. "I'll get out your way." He turned to go. "Wait," Carol said. He paused. She stepped closer, twins still clinging to her sides. Up close, he could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, a woman who stayed up late for more than just meetings. "I want you to know," she said carefully, "I see what you did. You could have walked past. You didn't. That matters. To them. To me." She reached down, grabbed her fallen phone, and slipped it into her coat pocket. "Can I at least know your full name?" she asked. "Avery Brooks," he said. She repeated it under her breath once, like she was committing it to memory. Tom folded his arms. "We're done here," he said, turning toward a waiting car. "Let the guy get back to whatever he does." People started to drift away. The show was over. No one wanted to hang around once the tears dried and the yelling quieted. Avery gave the twins a small nod. "Y'all take care," he said. "Stay close to your mom." They watched him walk back across the street, disappearing into the moving crowd. As he got farther away, he heard one of them ask a question that followed him all the way home. "Mommy," Lena said, "why did he care more than all the people who walked past us?" If you were standing in Carol's shoes right then, would you have let Avery walk away? Or would you have chased down his name and made sure this story didn't end on that sidewalk? The knock came hours later, when the city had quieted just enough for the pipes in Avery's apartment to make their usual soft clicks. 3 sharp knocks. Not the nervous tap of a neighbor. Not the heavy pound of a landlord. Precise. Confident. He looked up from the small kitchen table where he was sorting bills into pay now and pray about it stacks. His kid was asleep in the next room, a soft hum of a cartoon still playing on the old tablet by the bed. His first thought wasn't good. Late visits never were. He moved to the door on quiet feet and checked the peephole. Carol? No long luxury coat this time. No perfect twist in her hair. She wore a simple dark sweater, jeans, and a long scarf. Her face looked even more tired than it had on the street, but her eyes were clear. For a second, Avery just stared. Part of him wanted to pretend he wasn't home. People from her world didn't come to buildings like this unless something complicated was about to happen. He opened the door a crack. "Miss Lynch?" he said. "Just Carol," she replied. Her voice sounded different here. Less polished, more human. "I hope I'm not crossing a line showing up like this." "You found the right door," he said calmly. "That's already impressive in this building." She gave a small, surprised laugh, then glanced past him into the apartment. He stepped aside. "You can come in," he said. "It's not much, but it's warm." She walked in with a kind of careful respect, like she knew the space mattered, even if it didn't shine like her world. Her eyes took in the second-hand couch, the stack of school books on the table, the coat hooks by the door with just 2 jackets hanging. "I'm not here as a CEO tonight," she said quietly. "I'm here as a mother." The words settled in the air between them. She sat when he gestured to the chair. He stayed standing for a moment, then sat across from her, forearms resting on the table. "I needed to see where you came back to," she said. "After you walked away from my daughters, you came back here, to this, and I went back to a car with heated seats and someone ready to drive me wherever I wanted. It didn't sit right with me." "You didn't have to come all the way out here," Avery replied. "You already said thank you." "That's the thing," she said. "Thank you doesn't cover what almost happened. Or what did happen." She told him what the rest of her night looked like after he left, the way the twins wouldn't let go of her, the way they kept saying, "He stayed, Mom, he stayed," like they were trying to explain something she hadn't understood. She told him about Tom exploding in the car, about how he used the scare as another tool in his box. Another line in his speech about why she was unfit to have the girls without him supervising everything. Then she looked him in the eyes. "They trusted you," she said. "My daughters, 2 kids who have every reason to be cautious, they trusted you. They told me they weren't scared when you talked. They said you sounded like safety." Avery didn't know what to say to that. Safety wasn't a word he'd ever heard attached to his name before. "You want to know something?" she asked. "When I saw them standing there with you, I judged you first. Your jacket, your boots, your face. I did it fast. I'm not proud of it, but they told me what you did, how you called, how you didn't pull them away, didn't force anything, just stayed." She leaned in a little. "I came here to ask you one question, Avery. How do you do that? How do you show up like that when this city has given you every reason not to trust anybody?" He stared at the table for a second, at the marks where cups had left rings and pencils had pressed too hard on homework nights. "Because somebody has to," he said simply. "And too many people wait for somebody else." He didn't know it yet, but that honest sentence was about to pull him into a life he never expected to touch. If someone with power showed up at your door and asked you to teach them how to care better, would you open up? Or would you shut the door to protect your peace? Tom stepped out of the shadows so close to the subway entrance that Avery almost walked straight into him. The evening rush pushed around them, people brushing past with tired eyes and headphones in. Avery had his head down, backpack over one shoulder, mind on getting home in time to heat up dinner. Then a hand shot out and clamped around his arm. "We need to talk," Tom said. Avery pulled his arm back, not rough, just firm. "You don't put your hands on me," he said evenly. "If you've got something to say it with your mouth, not with your grip." Tom looked him up and down like he was a problem on a piece of paper that needed erasing. Suit pressed, shoes polished, jaw tight like he'd been chewing the same anger all day. "You really think you did something noble?" Tom asked. "One night? One scare. Now my daughters mention your name like you're some kind of hero." A train roared below them, air rushing up from the stairs. Avery didn't blink. "I think two little girls were standing in the cold," he said. "And I didn't keep walking. That's all." "That's not all," Tom snapped. "You put yourself in the middle of my family. You had those girls with you. You let them get attached. Now they ask about you. You know what that looks like in court?" Avery's jaw flexed. "I didn't let them get attached. I stood there so they weren't alone." "You want to be mad at somebody?" he added. "Be mad at the adults who left them in that spot, not the one who stood in it with them." Tom stepped closer, close enough that Avery could smell expensive cologne. "Here's how this is going to work," Tom said quietly. "You are going to stop taking her calls. You are going to stay away from my girls. And you are going to forget whatever story you're telling yourself about being useful to people out of your lane." "And if I don't?" Avery asked. Tom's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then I make sure you never work in any building connected to my family's company again. Maintenance, contracts, cleaning, all of it. One word from me and doors close." "You like paying rent? You like feeding your kid? Think hard about how much you want to be the good guy when good guys end up broke." Avery let the threat sit there for a second. He thought about his kid's shoes by the door. He thought about the twins' small hands in his gloves. He thought about Carol's tired eyes at his kitchen table. "You finished?" Avery asked. Tom blinked, like he wasn't used to being spoken to that way. "I don't want anything from your daughters," Avery said. "And I didn't ask Carol for anything either. I don't owe you trust. I owe those girls safety. So if they're in front of me and something's wrong, I'm going to help, with or without your permission." Tom's face changed. The nice edges dropped. "You have no idea who you're messing with," he said. Maybe Avery didn't know all the numbers on Tom's accounts or all the names on his contact list. But he knew the look of a man who thought fear was a tool. And he knew one thing. Fear only worked if you let it settle in your bones. He stepped around Tom and headed for the stairs. As he went down into the tunnel, he could feel Tom's glare burning into his back. The question that lingered wasn't about Tom's power. It was about how far a man like that would go when he realized threats weren't enough. If your livelihood was on the line and someone with money told you to walk away from doing the right thing, would you protect your income or your integrity? Carol was late to her own meeting. The boardroom on the 42nd floor was full. Partners, department heads, a couple of lawyers sitting on the side like quiet warnings. Charts glowed on the screen at the end of the long table. Coffee cups sat half full. People checked their watches. Then the glass door opened, and Carol stepped in. She wasn't rushing. She walked in with a calm that didn't match the numbers flashing behind her. But under that calm, something new lived in her eyes, like she'd decided what mattered before she ever hit the elevator button. "Sorry to keep you waiting," she said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "My daughters needed me." A few people shifted in their chairs. It was the kind of sentence CEOs didn't usually say out loud. Not in rooms like this. The meeting rolled on, but Carol's mind kept jumping tracks. Every time someone said risk, she saw the twins on that sidewalk. Every time someone said exposure, she heard Tom throwing the word unfit around like it was his favorite toy. When it ended, she walked out alone, hands in her pockets, and stopped by the big window overlooking the city. From up here, people looked like moving dots. Cars were ant trails, but somewhere down there, Avery was walking real sidewalks, taking real trains, living a life this floor rarely thought about. Her phone buzzed. A message from Tom. We need to talk before the next hearing. Call me. She didn't. Instead, she scrolled to another name. Avery. You free to talk later? I want to ask you something about the girls. She hesitated before pressing send. Not because she didn't mean it, but because she knew every call, every message could end up twisted in a courtroom. Later that week, she met Avery at a small diner 3 blocks from his place. No cameras, no glass walls, just chipped mugs and the smell of real food. You look tired, he said, as she slid into the booth. I am, she answered. Tom wants to use you as proof that I'm reckless, that I bring unsafe influences near the girls. He's trying to pull you into this, whether you like it or not. Avery stirred his coffee. He already tried, he said. He met me at the subway, told me to walk away or lose work. Carol's hand tightened around her mug. And I told him no, Avery said. I told him the same thing I told you. I don't run from kids who need someone to stand still. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You know he can make things hard for you, right? She asked. He wasn't lying about that part. I know, Avery said. But if I start choosing my paycheck over their safety, I'm not the man I tell my kid I am. That's a bigger loss than a contract. She sat back, studying him like he was a puzzle piece she hadn't planned for, but suddenly needed. You talk about them like they're yours, she said, not as an accusation, but as an observation. I talk about them like they're kids, he corrected. Kids don't care about who owns what floor, they care about who shows up and who doesn't. Her fingers eased off the mug. Can I ask you something honest, she said. You can try. Do you think they're better off with me? She asked. With all this around them, the meetings, the pressure, the cameras sometimes, or would they be happier somewhere, smaller? Somewhere like this? He didn't answer right away. He looked out the diner window at a crossing guard helping kids and parents move through the crosswalk. I think, Avery said slowly, they're better off with the version of you that sat at my kitchen table and asked, how do I do better? Not the version that lets people like Tom tell her who she is. The words hit her harder than anything on a quarterly report. A bell above the diner door rang as someone came in. It snapped the moment. I want to keep learning, Carol said quietly. Not just for them, for me. You sure? Avery asked. Learning means changing. Changing means people like Tom push back harder. I'm sure, she said. The question is, when he pushes harder, how much am I willing to risk to keep doing what's right? If you were in Carol's seat, with money and reputation on one side and your children's trust on the other, which one would you be ready to lose? Tom picked the worst time to make his move. It was supposed to be a simple afternoon. Carol at the park with the twins, no work phone, no assistants, just a blanket on the grass and a small bag of snacks. Lena and Lila were running from the swings to the slide, laughing in a way they hadn't in weeks. Avery was there too, not as the center of attention, just sitting at the edge of the blanket, fixing a toy car one of the girls had dropped. The twins had begged Carol to invite him. He knows how to fix things, they said. Carol watched the way they pulled him into their games without hesitation. No fear, no caution, just trust. I don't want them to get too attached, she said quietly. Too late, Avery replied. For them, maybe for you too. She opened her mouth, but before she could say anything back, a shadow fell over the blanket. Tom. He wasn't supposed to know about this, but Tom had never been good at staying in his lane. So this is what focusing on the girls looks like, he said, looking between Carol and Avery. Park dates with the help. Not the place, Tom, Carol said, standing up. The girls are having a good day. Let's not ruin it. They already are ruined, he said. You bring in random men, let them spend time around our daughters, and you want to tell a judge you have good judgment? Lena and Lila had gone quiet. They hovered by the jungle gym, watching. Tom, Avery said, getting to his feet slowly, I'm not here as anything but backup. You know that? If it makes it easier, I'll go. He picked up his jacket, ready to step back. That's exactly what you're going to do, Tom said. You're going to walk away and stay away. Because I promise you, if this shows up in court, it won't play the way you think. They won't see you as the kind man who helped. They'll see you as the unknown male around two little girls. Carol's hand curled into a fist at her side. Stop using fear like a weapon, she said. In front of them. It's not fear, Tom replied. It's reality. Judges don't care about your feelings. They care about what looks safe on paper. He turned back to Avery. You're putting her at risk, he said. You're putting them at risk. Walk away while she still has a chance. The twins took a few steps closer, big eyes bouncing between the adults. Mom? Lila called. Why is he mad? Carol looked at Avery for a long second. There was a choice sitting right there between them. He could make this easier by leaving. She could make this easier by letting him go. Instead, she did something she hadn't done in a long time. She chose the hard thing. Girls, she said, voice steady, you know Avery, right? They nodded. Do you feel safe when he's here? She asked. Yes, Lena answered without even thinking about it. He stayed. He always stays. Carol turned back to Tom. There's your reality, she said. Not what you think it looks like in court. What it actually is in their hearts. Tom's jaw tightened. He looked like a man who had just realized his favorite move didn't work anymore. For a moment, even the park noise seemed to fade. Just a father by blood, a mother under pressure, a stranger who cared, and two girls watching to see which adult was going to show them what strength really meant. If you were watching from a bench nearby, would you tell Avery to walk away for his own good, or would you hope he stayed and kept fighting for what felt right? The hearing room was colder than the hallway. Rows of benches, wood paneling, a judge's chair raised above everyone else. This was where people like Tom came to turn real life into points on paper. Carol sat at one table, lawyer at her side. Tom sat at the other, his lawyer flipping through folders. Avery sat in the back row, hands folded, trying to make himself small and still. He didn't want to be there. But his name was in the file now, and Tom had made sure of it. Your Honor, Tom's lawyer began, this case is about stability and judgment. My client isn't trying to keep his daughters from their mother. He's trying to ensure that whoever is around them is safe and appropriate. He clicked a remote, and a photo appeared on the TV screen. A grainy phone shot from the park, Avery on the blanket, twins leaning near him. This, the lawyer continued, is a man with no background check, no family connection, no clear role, spending private time with the children. We have multiple accounts of the mother inviting him into their lives in ways that are, at best, questionable. Carol's lawyer stood. Your Honor, that man with no role is the person who stayed with the girls when they were left alone on a busy street. He called for help. He stood in the cold. He didn't take them anywhere. He didn't ask for anything. The girls came home safe because he chose to act when others didn't. The judge turned to Carol. Miss Lynch, she said, why involve this man in your daughter's lives beyond that night? Carol looked back at Avery for a second, then faced the judge. Because he did in 1 hour what a lot of people with money and titles don't do, she said. He put their needs over his comfort. He didn't leave when it got inconvenient. My daughters feel safe around him. They talk to him. He has never overstepped, and frankly, I learned from him. He reminded me what showing up really looks like. Tom leaned into his mic. Or he saw an opportunity, he said. Single mom under stress, access to her children and her home. It's textbook. The judge raised a hand. Mr. Lynch, you'll have your turn. Then she looked at Avery. Mr. Brooks, she said, you've been mentioned by both sides. Do you wish to say anything? He hadn't planned on speaking. His heart skipped, but he stood. Yes, Your Honor, he said. If it's all right. Go ahead, she said. Avery walked to the small stand at the front. The room felt smaller now, but he kept his eyes on the judge, not on Tom's stare. I didn't ask to be in this, he said. I was just heading home from work when I saw two little girls standing by themselves, looking like the world had forgotten them. I stopped. I stayed. I called for help. When their mother got there, I walked away. He took a breath. Later she came to my door, he continued. Not with gifts, not with offers, just with questions. How do I show up better? How do I make them feel safe? I saw a mom who was scared of losing her kids, not because she didn't love them, but because this life pulls people in all directions at once. He glanced back at the twins on the bench behind Carol. They were watching him, hands wrapped together. I don't want anything from those girls, he said. I don't want anything from Mrs. Lynch. I want two kids in this city to grow up knowing that when somebody says, I'll stay, they mean it. That's it. He stepped back. The judge watched him for a long second, then nodded. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, she said. When all the talking was done, the judge leaned forward. This isn't a case about a stranger trying to take over a family, she said. This is a case about parents needing to align their priorities. Mr. Lynch, I see your concern. But I also see a pattern of control that is not in the best interest of your daughters. Miss Lynch, I see meaningful effort and growth. The court awards primary physical custody to Miss Lynch, with shared legal custody as previously arranged. Tom exhaled hard through his nose. His lawyer started whispering in his ear, already planning the next move. Carol closed her eyes for just a second, opened them, and looked right at Avery. He had never seen that mix of relief and fear in one face before. Relief that she wouldn't lose her girls. Fear of what Tom might do next now that he didn't get his way. If a judge gave you a second chance to do right by the people who matter most, what would you change first? Your schedule, your circle, or your idea of what strength looks like? 6 months later, Avery was back in a conference room. But this time, he wasn't cleaning it. He stood at the front of a medium-sized training room on one of the lower floors of Carol's company headquarters. No giant board table, just rows of chairs, a screen, and a whiteboard. The slide behind him read, Building Family-First Workplaces, Listening from the Ground Up. The audience wasn't investors. It was supervisors, building managers, and HR staff. People who actually touched the day-to-day lives of the folks who worked in and around those towers. I'm not here as an expert with letters after my name, Avery said. I'm here as a dad who's worked nights and as a man who's fixed toilets on Christmas Eve because someone's boss said it couldn't wait. A few people chuckled. I'm also here, he added, as someone who watched two little girls almost slip through the cracks of busy lives. He talked about what it meant to schedule people like they weren't human. To ignore gas leak reports because the building wasn't high value. To act like overtime was free. Carol sat in the back row listening. She had made space for this. Not as a favor to Avery, but as a correction to herself. The woman who once measured days in meetings now measured some of them in school plays, bedtimes, and quiet car rides with no phone. Lena and Lila were different too. Their teachers said they seemed steadier. Their drawings had changed. Now, next to the tall glass buildings, there were figures holding hands. One looked suspiciously like Avery, with his work cap on. After the session, as people filtered out, Carol walked up. You know, they asked if they could call you Uncle Avery the other day, she said with a small smile. He shook his head a little, amused. You tell them that's up to you, not me. I told them, she said, that titles are earned, and I think you've earned whatever one they feel in their hearts. They stood by the window for a moment, watching the city move. You ever think about how weird it is that all this started on a sidewalk? She asked. If you had been 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later, they might have been standing there waiting on somebody else, he said. Somebody who maybe wouldn't have stopped. She looked at him then, really looked, the way people do when they realize the line between stranger and family is thinner than anyone admits. There's something else, she said. The board approved a new policy. No more ignoring low-income maintenance reports. No more assuming the cheapest option is the right one. We're creating a fund just for safety issues in older buildings. Your old gas leak report was the first example I showed them. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, she replied. I did. You saved my girls. The least I can do is stop pretending that profit matters more than people. The elevator dinged behind them. They didn't move. You ever wonder what would have happened if you had kept walking that night? She asked quietly. Sometimes, he said. Then I stop, because I don't want to picture a world where those girls learned that nobody stops. That night, Avery went home to his same apartment, same table, same worn couch. But there were new things too. A drawing from the twins on the fridge. A text from Carol asking if he could come to Lena's recital. An email from the company about the new safety program he helped shape. His bank account wasn't suddenly huge. His life wasn't a movie. But the weight in his chest had shifted. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was standing in a place where his choices had stretched further than his own front door. 2 kids in red coats had changed his world. And he had changed theirs. If this story touched your heart, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next support story that inspires. Share your thoughts in the comments. What part of Avery's choice spoke to you the most? Your words might be the thing that helps someone else keep going.